In 80 years, everyone in this room will be dead. So let's make sure we use that time wisely, eh?
And it's super helpful as a genuine time-saving device.
This is urgent and important.
You can do an entire book, let's say 200 pages, you can do that in 20 minutes.
Ideally, you'd read this 3 times a day, but 2 is okay.
Wonderful addition for you to add to your mornings to help you save time and
Keep it simple. I'm so sorry.
Is it vital? Is it necessary?
So while you're...
To live as fully as possible. To be so curious about everything.
And just run that list like 10 times a day. This feeling has largely dictated the past few years of my life. No matter how many time-saving tricks and gadgets I adopt, it feels like I snap out of some trance at the end of every week to go, that certainly went by a lot faster than I thought. I make whole lists of things I'd like to do, curating the very best way to spend my time, and then look back at the end of the month and find I barely touched any of it. And I thought at first it might just be me. You know, it wouldn't be the first time. But as I spoke to my friends about this, it turns out I wasn't alone. Most of them reported some sense of rushing, some external pressure that just never let up. No matter how hardworking they were, and trust me, some of them, they didn't ever seem to be able to pacify this ominous sense of falling behind. Are we all just messed up? What's going on? What can we do? Or should we start with, how did we get here? Ooh, I'm so excited, I finally get to do the cliché. Part 1, the Industrial Revolution. No, okay, I'm kidding, but also not really. Pretend you were a carpenter. No, really, like, do it. Like, wait, I'll give you the bloody uniform, it'll look great on you. It's hard work, but your one-of-a-kind luxury mahogany desks are in high demand. Being the only one to have witnessed your great-grandfather's arcane tapestry of delirious wall scribbles, opening your mind to the possibilities of woodworking, nobody can quite make them the way you do. The secret is in the polish. You always sand down your work to the finest grains, to the point where your hands ache and your knuckles start to bruise. But you have a good reason for pushing through the pain. You've almost saved up enough to buy your very own Polishtron Mark II. With the press of a single button, you send in a hunk of junk beechwood, and out comes the most beautiful, flawless tabletop you've ever seen. It's cut to size, it's sanded, it's varnished, it's epoxied. This thing is a beauty of modern engineering, and it's about to be all yours. And with it, you could finally enjoy some peace and quiet. The machine would free you up to truly savor the rest of your time. You could live as you wanted, doing a couple of hours of labor to produce what you needed to, and taking the rest of the day off, all while still delivering bespoke, top quality woodwork at the same pace as before. But what's that? Oh no, it's capitalism. You could take the rest of the day off, but you could also stay on just a little longer, work a little more. That new machine is going to need a lot of regular upkeep, and upkeep doesn't come for free. Maybe you should stay on and try to make just a little more cash, because your competitor, let's call him Peter, can't be far behind. You might be taking the day off, but who says Peter is? And if Peter isn't, he will outproduce you, he'll out-earn you, and he can reinvest those extra earnings to outclass you even more. And Peter might not be a bad guy, he might just want the same thing you do, but having more money means having more stability. Peter dreams of striking it big in the woodworking industry, because maybe then he too could finally escape the constant hustle and grind. It's a positive feedback loop. If you start to fall behind, his workshop might swallow yours entirely, growing too fast for you to ever keep up. And as it expands faster and faster, you might never catch up again. In the face of that, you can never afford to settle down. And honestly, neither can Peter. Despite buying this time-saving wonder machine and all of the dreams of freedom that came with it, your days end up just as full as they were before. We try to compress our workload by inventing ever more powerful technology, but the pace of our life simply accelerates to fill the gaps. The less time we need to produce our work, the more work we're expected to produce. Now, instead of a carpenter, imagine you were you. And it's current year. You might not make tables for a living, but chances are you've got some sort of job, studies to pursue, or both. You might have other responsibilities, like volunteering at your local tennis club, or a chronic illness, like actually enjoying tennis. Whatever. Sorry. Whatever you're doing, your life is likely a lot more complex. But this acceleration that I'm talking about isn't just limited to your working hours. Whether you're working or playing or resting, the world around you continues to shift. Tasks pile up, the software you use grows and changes, and new ideas, responsibilities, and workflows are constantly entering the market. Technological advancements allow us to do more, make more, and be more. So our lives change, and this change happens faster and faster. The world becomes more mercurial by the day, and if you don't want to be left in the dust, you'd best stay up to date. So even if you're not trying to be some Sigma grindset tater tot, it still makes sense to fill your downtime by quickly checking what's going on TikTok and Reddit and Nu.nl, that one's probably only from our Dutch viewers, love y'all. You'll be inundated with new ideas, opinions, and news, some of which may be very relevant to you, and a lot of which is probably not. All of a sudden, you're aware of a billion different things happening in the world, each of which represents a new idea, an ocean of things that you could be doing right now. The Earth is on fire! Are you doing anything to save it? Robots are coming for your job. Are you doing anything to stay desirable?
Exposito.
Ex potato.
Exposito.
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 The robots are on fire! Earlier in our history, it used to be the case that what your parents and peers taught you about life was pretty much guaranteed to hold up. But as our society accelerates, our social and professional landscapes change faster and faster. Any practical advice you receive now might not even last the year if it's not already outdated by the time you receive it. It's a world that incentivizes staying on your toes. In a world like that, rest and idleness increasingly become things that need to be justified. Do you really need a break? While you're resting, the world isn't stopping. Your to-do list is gonna keep expanding. Every second you rest, the world is catching up with you. This leads to what author Hartmut Rosa calls slipping slopes, the sensation of standing on a hillside that is constantly morphing, shifting, and crumbling down as you try to climb up. It requires great amounts of effort to even just stay where you are, and standing still means to fall increasingly further behind. We desperately try to reclaim some ground by sending emails after hours and working through our lunch breaks. Of course, there's always more to do, as constant notifications make sure to remind us. Our rest consists of still taking in information, but in increasingly condensed and fragmented forms. Instead of reading books, we use Blinkist to read 4 books a day. Watching a 1-hour show on Netflix gives way to watching 5-second videos on TikTok for 4.5 hours. We often don't actually enjoy this time or remember it particularly fondly, but the feeling that you can jump in and out whenever you want makes it feel like less of a commitment. And what do we get to see on those platforms? An endless torrent of expertly cherry-picked success stories from people our age and younger still. We all feel like we're behind on our peers. And what makes it worse is that today, it feels like there's no end to it. In a world that treasures flexibility over commitment, where experience dates faster and faster and retraining is a constant, you don't get to grow old and wise, you just get to grow behind the times. I don't know if all of these concerns and anxieties are objectively justified, but when we're simultaneously being pressured by our peers to succeed by a ridiculously young age, and concerned about the future of our world, and filling every gap in our day with more stimuli and work, and then still need to be alert and flexible enough to potentially pivot our careers at a moment's notice, is it any wonder all of us are out here looking like zoom-in shot of tired and exhausted businessman working late night in the office, blue moonlight, slow motion shot 00.29? Oh. It's gotten to the point where our days are being forcibly rescheduled. When there's simply too many things to fit in a single day, we have to cope in some way. Only the most urgent tasks get addressed, as we're constantly trying to put out fires. We cope by bookmarking the things that make us feel alive and shoving them back to some undefined later date. We tell ourselves we'll get to it eventually, and then we never actually do. I believe that's how we get those deeply painful moments where we pause, realize another year has passed, and we've got precious little to show for all of our good intentions. Link enough short terms together, and you can spend quite a bit of time. And that's the problem. The pastimes that are dearest to us are also often the same ones that require some amount of prep work, coordination, an unbroken stretch of time. But when we're trying to stay agile despite being swarmed by tasks, it makes it harder and harder to justify taking the time for these commitments. Despite our best efforts, our days fill up with more and more to-dos, completely obscuring those things that actually give us a sense of meaning and agency. We're so desperate to stay within reach of the 1,000 possible lives we could be living that we're not getting to live the one we actually have. We don't even allow ourselves the moment of stillness needed to reflect on what it is that we actually find important. We just drift along as time slips through our fingers. We tell ourselves, it's alright, this is temporary. I'll get to living my real life once I sort this situation out. Eventually there'll be time to do what I actually want. Wait, what did I actually want? So on one hand, we're experiencing a ton of pressure to accelerate and change constantly, and on the other, that same pressure paralyzes us with options, all leading to a situation where we're pressed into a non-stop state of unrest, yet beyond a surface level, nothing substantial ever seems to change. Who could have ever expected this? So what can we do about it? Well, if we're talking about slowing down, being present, and savoring the moment, I believe the time has finally come to get really good at tantric sex. In all seriousness, I really struggled to write this section. If all I'm suggesting to you is another productivity tool or another item to add to your already crowded to-do list, I'm just contributing to the problem. I could tell each of you to pick up an axe and build a cabin in the woods Walden style, but how feasible is that really? Many ways of addressing this problem require either sweeping societal changes or some kind of pre-existing privilege. But I still want to leave you with some things that I personally found helpful. My first suggestion is to give up some things. More precisely, it's to find an anchor for yourself to hold on to. Claim a moment and some quiet space and try to write about the things that you care most about. Try to give a voice to what is most important to you. The reason you started doing what you're currently trying to pursue. The words you find can be your guiding light the next time you're swarmed with options or having to alter your life plans. Even if the specifics of your job or responsibilities change, hopefully knowing what matters most to you provides some stability amidst all that uncertainty. What do you personally truly love? But this reflection also might just show you things you can let go of without any real loss. Those things that you spend a big part of your day on that, upon reflection, you don't actually care that much about. Now, for those of you who are feeling too frazzled to even clear your head enough to do that exercise, might I recommend
half an hour of staring at a wall.
Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds stupid and boring. And it is. That's kind of the point. By temporarily depriving ourselves of outside signals, we clear the way for whatever our brain is most concerned with right now. Actual idleness, time to do nothing at all, is so difficult to come by in today's world of instant entertainment and constant notifications. That's exactly why we need to make a more conscious effort to reset our heads every now and then. There's a lot of research that suggests that our creative problem solving happens mainly when we're not thinking about the actual problem itself. And similarly, boredom is believed to be the force that kicks us into gear to seek out new adventures and interesting projects. People's days used to be filled with regular idleness because it simply took longer to get to places or to switch between different activities. There were always going to be times where everyone was just sitting around waiting for somebody to say, yo, what if we built a big shark out of wood? And then you would just do that. Today, at the first sign of boredom, we instinctively reach for the magic rectangle and are deluged with a literally inexhaustible supply of interesting things. We no longer spend enough time in that bored state to actually get the benefits from it. So for now, we must wall. You don't need to do it for half an hour, but when you're done staring, have a go at writing about where your brain's at. Verbalize your thoughts, your feelings. Depending on what you find, it might be time to make space on your schedule for something new. Or maybe you realize it's actually time to cut something else out entirely. Whatever you find, try to block out some time to pursue that thing. Protect that time and truly savor it. After all, it's what's most important to you. It'll be extremely difficult to rid ourselves of this constant sense of acceleration in the context of a competitive capitalist landscape. Any form of active deceleration would require extensive overarching cooperation. Currently, the whole thing is like a game of chicken. The first one to hit the brakes loses. What would organizing those efforts look like? And who gets to call the shots? I wish I could leave you with some kind of concise, conclusive answer. I could spin something together and lead you on for that sweet YouTube engagement, but I'd be lying if I claimed to understand the related subjects even remotely well enough. But we can start on a smaller scale, by not glorifying the idea of never having any time, by not putting that endless cycle of overwork and burnout on a pedestal. Let's be there for one another. We can make plans with our friends, do stupid stuff just for the sake of it, and make some heartier memories. Link enough short terms together, and you can make quite a long-term change.